Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael.
And I'm Molly.
Molly is back. We are so excited to have you back. We missed you last week. And we are here to talk another week of Love Island, week five. Crazy post Casa week with a stand on business challenge that blew up the villa. And then we are also going to be covering the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives season 2 reunion, their first reunion hosted by Molly's favorite, Nick Viall. So excited to talk about both of these shows. Molly, are you ready to get into it?
Yes, I'm so excited and happy to be back. It was a fun weekend last weekend in Chicago, but also I have a funny story about that is the couple that got married, they actually just went to Fiji for their honeymoon. And
Ooh.
today I saw on their story that they saw Ariana Madix at
Stop
whatever
it.
bar they're at. Yeah, she was just there. I don't know if they went up to her, but I just relevant to Love Island because I told them I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna maybe see someone there," and they saw Ariana.
Whoa. Okay,
Yeah.
we will give an update next week. You need to reach out to them, see if they talk to Ariana, get all the gossip, and then return next week with an update, okay? That's your homework.
Okay, I will. I already heard of the story, but now I'll just go and reply.
Okay, perfect. All
Yes.
right, well, let's get into some Love Island then. We are post Casa recoupling. Alandria is upset that Taylor didn't give her a heads up about choosing Clark over her. That's kind of where we ended last week with Taylor choosing Clark over Alandria. And this makes sense to me. We will get into some Alandria stuff later that makes me want to shake her a little bit, but this I understand. I understand that she would be upset that Taylor kind of led her to believe that she could potentially have been chosen and then blindsided her by choosing Clark. So I get that. But she also tells Sierra about her kiss with Nick, and Sierra does not seem fazed by it. This was shocking to me. I really thought that Sierra was going to have some sort of reaction to this. I thought this was something she could get over, but I really did think that she was going to have a little bit more of a shocked reaction, a little bit more of an issue with it when she was first told about it. But she says she's glad it was Alandria over some other random girl she doesn't know that he explored with. Molly, what did you think about Sierra's reaction here?
Yeah, in the moment, I was also a little bit shocked, but it kind of made sense just based on, like, I guess she just felt very secure in where she was at with Nick in that moment that it didn't really bother her just because also that Alandria was one of her closest friends there that she knew, like, she was kind of happy in a way that it was her and not like someone random, because then it was just easy to just like move on from that and like, okay, yeah, we're better as friends. Like they kind of already knew that, but they just had to test it in a way to see that. And so I think Sierra understood that, and that's why she just came across as chill and like, okay, whatever in this moment. And then later on, obviously, we see that she gets a little more upset, but like not by that much.
Yeah, I think Iris kind of gets into her head
Yeah.
just a little bit with it, but I don't know that even so, like, I feel like she almost took it in a way of like, okay, maybe I should be upset, but I'm not for
Yeah.
some reason type of thing. Like, she understands that, like, a normal person would think that you should be upset about this, but, like, she still wasn't really. I don't know.
No,
It's
that's
weird.
exactly what I thought too. I was like, yeah, she
Yeah.
should thinks because Iris is upset about it, that now Sierra should be upset about it.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, but I look, I'm glad I guess that she's not. Better for the strength of their relationship that this wasn't a hurdle that they really had to get over. But then we get to the heart rate challenge, the famous heart rate challenge that they do every season on Love Island. And for those who don't know, this is where all of the islanders dress up in various costumes and do different acts that whatever they feel they need to do to get different people's heart rates up, and then at the end they tell everybody whose was raised the most by what islander raised their heart rate the most. And this can cause drama if it wasn't their couple partner that raised it the most. If it was someone else, sometimes this causes drama. But this season, it seems like there was drama from a different source than that. The results didn't necessarily have play a factor in it, but there were really two sets of couples here that got into some drama. First, Nick gets upset with Elan for kissing Sierra, since of course Sierra and Elan kind of had a little thing back in Casa. And Nick thinks that Ilan went too far in kissing Sierra, that given their history, he should have not done that. And Shelley gets angry with Hutta for the extent of her kiss with Ace, thinking that this broke girl code. Molly, do you think that in either case there was a legitimate reason for them to be upset, or is a challenge and whatever happens is fair game?
Well, with the Huda drama, I feel like that like obviously shook up a lot of things there. Like they kept talking about it. Like everyone was having different chats about their thoughts, and with that, like I was kind of surprised, but also like it is a challenge, and also I feel like people were getting mad because it was Huda more than what happened. Also we obviously didn't see everything. Like they cut stuff out, so it definitely went on longer than what we saw. And everyone was like, it was too much. Like, why was she doing that to Ace? Like, this is just kind of weird for her to do this. And also because she's close to Shelly, like all that kind of stuff, which I mean, it's a show. Like, how close are you to, like, obviously they're friends in the show, but like, are they going to be best friends out of the show? Like, probably not. And so I think there's just like a lot of kind of double standards going on here too. But in general, like I don't think she did anything like crazy wrong. Like she was having fun in the challenge, and I think that's the extent that obviously was not taken that way.
Yeah, I think there's a few factors at play here. So I think that in the case of Shelley and Huda, I really do think that Ace probably got in Shelley's head a bit about Huda. Like Ace has never liked Huda. And so I think that Ace has been kind of chirping in Shelley's ear, talking about Huda, saying all this stuff about Huda and Jeremiah. And, Ace, we know, had something against Jeremiah, and in turn, that extended over to Huda as well. So I think that Shelley, like, probably my guess would be that Shelley was, lightly defending Huda to Ace during when he was saying those things before, or maybe just like kind of, not really participating much. Like, I don't think that Shelley probably was like trash talking Huda a lot before this, but I do think that this moment probably like set a light bulb off in Shelley's head of like, oh my God. Ace was right this whole time. Huda is that girl that's gonna do that, and blah blah blah. Like I think that this kind of just maybe confirmed her like worst fears, or just confirmed like what she feels like she's been fed from Ace all this time. And so I think that she just wasn't really willing to give Huda the benefit of the doubt at first because of just all this stuff that just was kind of, she felt like was confirmed in her head of like, oh, this makes all this other stuff makes sense, everything that I've been told. I think another part of it potentially, though, is the fact that she probably thinks that America doesn't like Huda because of them splitting up Huda and Jeremiah, and putting Jeremiah with Iris way back when. And I think ever since then, the villa has probably thought, oh, Huda and Jeremiah both were disliked by America, or at least one of them was, but they don't know which one. And this was a way for, maybe Shelley to be like, oh, clearly America was seeing all this all along, and now I'm seeing it too, now that it's happening to me directly. And so I don't know, I think it's a lot of that stuff at play. With Nick and Elan, I think Nick, I get why he was upset, but I do think that
Yeah.
it just kind of was like making a little bit of a bigger deal out of not a big deal.
Yeah, for that with Alon, like I just think it wasn't that big of a deal for Nick to be upset. But yeah, as you're saying about all the stuff with Huda, Shelly, Ace, like it just there's a lot of factors there, so it's
Yeah.
just it's there's the drama, which obviously we like seeing drama, so it was great TV.
Oh yeah, look, I love anytime a challenge can actually impact the what's happening in the villa after the challenge. I love it because otherwise these challenges oftentimes are just kind of like a waste of time on the show. And so I feel like this season though, a lot of them have been playing into the drama afterwards. And so I think that they've done a better job overall. Like, the challenge in this past episode, not necessarily
I fast
me
forwarded.
too,
Yeah.
honestly. But otherwise, most of them, I say they had a pretty high success rate this season overall with the challenges.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, then the fallout from this happens, and Huda tries to pull Shelly for a chat after hearing she's upset at her. Shelly at first says yes, but then decides it's best to wait so she doesn't say anything she regrets. At this moment, I supported this actually. Like I thought, okay, I think that's good for you, Shelly. I'm glad that you know what kind of mental state you're in right now. That it's not the best time to do this. You'll say something you regret, and let's sleep on it. Wait till tomorrow. Probably have a more productive conversation. That didn't really happen for quite a while, but at the moment, I supported it. Elan did talk to Nick, though, and Nick expresses that he feels disrespected. Elan says that Sierra had told him that she wanted to explore both connections, but doesn't want to disrespect him, so, he thought it was fair game to do something like that, but now that he knows, he'll kind of back off. What did you think of that conversation? It seemed like they didn't really get to a better place in Nick's perspective, at least, what he said in his confessional. But how did you think both of them kind of handled it?
Yeah, I thought that Huda and Shelly were gonna have a better conversation, like knowing that Shelly was like, let's just wait. But then they didn't really have much more context or like much more in-depth conversation there that I was hoping like maybe it would just go better than it did. But for Elon and Nick, I think that for that, like it's obvious that Sierra feels more strongly towards Nick here, so it's like kind of I mean, we also know they are about to close things off, but at this point it's like well, at least he's still trying. Like he's doing it in a nice way. Also, like they're being open and honest about what's going on, which is good. Like at least nothing is being hidden there. So I think that was respectful too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I respect the fact that they're, willing to have this conversation at the very least. Like I can understand Nick being a bit upset seeing that right in front of him, but I do think that Elaine is perfectly within his rights to still try to explore because at this point, like it's hard to remember necessarily because now we know that for a couple episodes now Nick and Sierra have been closed off, which we'll get to. But at this point, they were not. So I
Yeah.
think if you're not closed off, you have to expect that other people are going to still try their best if they feel like they have a connection with your partner, that they will also continue to, until they are told by your the person they're pursuing that they don't want to be pursued by you anymore. I think it's fair game until Sierra says something for Ilan to keep trying. And, I understand that it might not be super comfortable for Nick, but I think he has to not hold that against Eli.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, then Shelly and Ace have a chat. So Ace has been frustrated with Shelly that she is still exploring things with Chris when he sent Coco home in favor of fully focusing on Shelly after Casa. And then after this Hearts on Fire challenge, Ace is mad that Shelly still circled back for a second kiss with Chris during the challenge, and she tells him that they said they were going to be open and explore other connections, which is what she's doing. But he's upset because he feels like Shelly is still pursuing other things more than he is, but being upset when he tries to pursue something with someone else. So what do you think here with this dynamic? Were you on one side or the other in particular, or what did you think of their dynamic at this moment?
I mean, this conversation, I felt like actually Ace was like in the right in this kind of stuff. Like, I did think like maybe Shelly was making it seem like so she had two options and he didn't like have any other options like at all, and she was getting upset over a challenge where he wasn't even pursuing her like outside of the challenge. Like it was just that was the challenge and that was it. But then with Shelly, she obviously still was interested in potentially wanting to explore with Chris and also kissed him twice in the challenge. So there was just a lot of misunderstanding here in their relationship or whatever they have going on. And at least they were able to like discuss it in a way. I don't know how productive it was, but they definitely got out their feelings. And at least that's part of it. So I don't know. I just
Yeah.
it felt like also uncomfortable. Like as a viewer, I was like, I don't even know if they're making sense totally, but I think I get what they're trying to say.
Yeah, I kind of was on neither side,
Yeah.
both sides. I don't know. I didn't really have like a strong team in this argument. Because I feel like they're both doing kind of the same thing and getting upset at each other for doing a very similar thing. Like I think that they either just need to say, okay, we are closed off and we are not going to explore things with other people, or we are open and we are going to explore things with other people and be okay with exploring things with other people. Like I feel like they're both trying to set boundaries on like how much they are able to explore, when it's okay to explore, but then getting upset when they haven't set distinct boundaries. And I don't know. I think that they seem to be have like a good chemistry. When they're good, they are good. And I
Mhm.
really do feel that chemistry there and think they have a lot of potential. But then I think that right now they are both just kind of maybe on slightly different pages or confused as to where they are in their relationship, like what they are defining this as and what the boundaries are. So I think they just really need to make that very clear for each other. And it seems like they're not ready to be exclusive right now, so don't be exclusive. But then you can't get mad when the other person is going to explore.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's difficult because they haven't had that exclusive talk and so they're kind of teetering that line and it's just not easy for either one.
Well, and it's weird because I feel like they have had that talk. Like they've had
Yeah.
the talk about whether we should be, but then they seem to just always come to the conclusion that one or the other is not ready for that.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it a little bit hard when it's like one seems to be ready, one's not. Then it's like, okay, you're on different pages, and I don't know, maybe that's not a great sign. I don't know. In the end, I don't think this relationship is going to work out outside of the villa.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Well, we will see. We have
Yeah.
one more week left in the villa, and then we will see what happens afterwards, depending on where they end things. But more to come there. And let's go back to Nick and Sierra very quickly. They have a very boring date, but they do decide to close things off during this date. So we have defined their relationship here.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that was kind of expected to happen on this date. So I'm happy for them. They obviously like each other. So this was the next step, and they were officially closed off now.
Yes, and we will see if neither of them have been removed from the villa when we come back on Sunday night's episode. We will see. There's some talk with Sierra about fans wanting to remove her from the villa after a resurfaced Instagram post went viral. And people are saying, well, Yulissa got sent home for her post. Sierra, what are you going to do? Are you going to hold her to the same standards? So it'll be interesting to see if anything comes from that. But if not, if they are both still in the villa, I do think that this is a couple that is going to leave hand in hand together. And well, we'll see with other dynamics what happens if they stay together. But I think from what we're seeing, I feel like at this point, I don't think there's going to be any more trouble in paradise with the two of them.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen. If production's going to move her or just leave her at this point when there's less than a week left of filming or like I don't know, it's like kind of late at this point, but also it's a precedent that they're setting as well. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, my guess, honestly, I think we would have heard something by now if they were going to remove her, because I think they would want to make a post just saying Sierra has been removed from the villa. You won't, you will see what happens on Sunday night's episode. This is unacceptable, blah blah blah. I think they would just want us to know that that's happening so that they would stop getting flooding the comments with people asking her to remove. Like I feel like if they had done something about it by now, we would know about it by now.
Yeah.
Similar to like Luke on Big Brother, when he was sent home in season 25, immediately after they did something, they posted about it and said, you know, see Sunday night's episode or Thursday night's episode, whatever it was, to see what happened. But they didn't just wait till the show aired to for us to know that it did happen. And I feel like they would do the same thing here if they were did do something about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yes, we will. Well, Huda and Chris, they share a kiss in the speakeasy. This is a couple that, I mean, obviously, Chris Huda and Shelley's little triangle there has caused some drama that people thinking that Huda brought whether or not Huda brought Chris back to the villa for Shelley to explore or for herself to explore is a an argument that we will see coming up in just a little bit here, but it's very clear now that Huda at least partially brought Chris back for herself because they did share a kiss. And the next morning, she tells the girls that she thinks she's starting to have feelings for him, that she's starting to really like him. So, what do you think of them as a potential couple here, and the conversations that they've had?
I actually really like them together. I think that they've obviously like are pretty new as a couple, but they are getting along really well and just having good conversations. So it's good to see Huda also like calm and not super crazy about certain things that are happening. Like she seems very at ease with Chris, which I think is a good sign. So and obviously he makes her feel good and he likes talking to her too. So I think things are going well for them. I support it.
I do too. I really like them together. And, I don't know whether this different Huda that we're seeing is because she's being self-conscious based on how the reaction that people have given her about her, how she was in her relationship with Jeremiah. So she might very intentionally trying to be more calm and less hectic, if you will,
Yeah.
or whether he just makes her feel more comfortable than Jeremiah did and doesn't piss her off as much. Like, you can have a very toxic relationship with somebody and then you get into a relationship with, somebody who has a very different type of personality and then suddenly you just kind of are a different person. So, I don't know. I think maybe it's a little bit of both, but I like them together a lot so far and we'll see what happens in the coming week.
Yeah, same. I want to see if they continue to build on it, and I think they could be standing at in the finale together.
I could see it too. I don't think they'll win, but
No.
I could absolutely see them being a couple that makes it to the finals all the way to the end, and gets maybe like I don't know third place is
Yeah.
my guess. I don't know. I can see that. Well, then the Islanders play a new game that, for the first time this season, called Stand on Business, where they write letters to each other that can either be signed or anonymous. And then the recipients will read those letters in front of the whole group. So we're not going to get into each of the letters. There were a lot of them, and some of them didn't, necessarily cause a ton of conversation or drama. So we're just going to get into, I think it's about six or seven here that did cause quite a bit of commotion and discuss those. So, Pepe wrote a letter to Shelley, Alandria, and Sierra saying, I don't understand why you girls chose to send Hannah home. She is one of the only girls who explored an unsafe connection with another person. The logic does not make sense. So then Sierra explains the reasoning about, why they chose Hannah, that she had had a chance to explore two connections already, while Amaya and Iris had both been dealt unfair hands up until that point and hadn't had that opportunity. I understand her reasoning. I do. I still think that this whole thing of like almost punishing somebody for having a strong connection is causing an interesting problem in this season where it just is making it so that there's really no strong couples left.
We
So
can
there
start.
was this whole thing last season of, during the Andrea's dumping where Janae was, the guys thought Janae should be sent home because she didn't have a connection with anyone. And then the girls were saying, no, we want her to possibly explore a connection with a bombshell who comes in, and it ended up working out for Janae, obviously, because she is still very much happy with Kenny. And a year later, but I think that this season maybe people saw that and saw that the audience seemed to be on the girl's side with it primarily, and that they're thinking, well, we'll just kind of use this same logic here. And I think it works early in the season when there's still a lot of opportunity for a bombshell to come in. But I do think that as it gets later in the season, you can't really keep using that logic because there's not a lot of opportunity for somebody who doesn't already have a strong connection to find one. So, maybe that elimination was like on the verge of being early enough to use it, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think about their choice there?
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like they definitely were basing it off of things I had seen last season, but I also just think they probably just were closer, I guess, to Maya and Iris than they were to Hannah, or at least it's hard to tell though because then Hannah kept on saying how she thought they were really close she was like, oh, everyone was close together. So I don't know how that came about more than just like I guess they were jealous of Hannah having two connections and then the other ones didn't have that. But it also obviously for Pepe like wasn't great because he really liked Hannah. But I think now like it's the show. Like they had to move on from it even if they didn't like that decision. So and now we've seen Amaya and Iris both have connections. So I mean they have found that now somewhat. But
Yeah.
it's just not ideal for when it happened.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think with the Andrea dumping, there was a very obvious choice in terms of just they were obviously significantly closer with Janae than they were with Andrea.
Yeah.
And, I guess it could have been, Andrea or Nicole kind of taught flip a coin. They had both been there the same amount of time at that point, but I think with this one it's a little more confusing because you would think they were closer with Hannah than they were with Iris because
Yeah.
Iris was newer at that time, hadn't been there that long. So in terms of them just kind of choosing their friend, you would think that Hannah would be safe in that point, but who knows? This happened a long time ago, but interesting that it's still coming up clearly, and that Pepe obviously still has that on his mind all this time, and is still upset about that, and thinking about Hannah. It's very clear that when we'll see that later on too, but it is very clear that he still, I think, has Hannah on his mind.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, then we get to Austin, or Maya, I guess, is up there, and Austin wrote a letter to Amaya saying, "You cry more than needed. You try to move too fast for everyone." So he's kind of explains what he meant by this, saying he was a little harsh, but he says that she was too intense when they were together. And then Ace chimes in, of course, saying that he wanted to slow the pace down, and that she needs to kind of meet in the middle. And then Zach chimes in and says that he also adds that he felt a need to step back from her. And so Amaya starts crying because there's these three guys that are just kind of all coming at her at once. And Brian is the only one to defend her. None of the girls really say anything, but Brian steps in and says, look, that he's from a Hispanic household and that saying babe is just kind of how they talk. And it doesn't mean that she thinks that she's particularly close to them. Whoever she's saying that to is just kind of a normal thing that they say. And so Amaya walks away, and Sierra and Hada go comfort her. But this was really hard to watch. I mean, poor Amaya Papaya. She is so sweet and is just like, thank you for your feedback. And then she walks away. Oh, poor
No.
thing.
I felt so bad. I was like almost tearing up and crying for her too. But it was nice to see Brian standing up for her
Yeah.
here, but all the guys were just being rude and they were getting like it just didn't make sense. Obviously, like they didn't like her. Like you can just move on from that. Like that's not your personality. That's fine. Like that's not the personality of like a girl you want to date. Like that's fine, but don't try to drag her down for being who she is.
Yeah, and I mean, not that I ever really want to give Ace credit, but to his credit, at least he was honest with her at the time. Whereas
Yeah.
Austin and Zach, like, she's just hearing this for the first time from them. And it's like in front of everybody now, she's discovering that they kind of felt the same way that Ace did. And it's like, oh my God, why am I just now hearing this from you and getting embarrassed in front of the entire group that now you're have a problem with me? Whereas, like, never told me that at the time. And especially with Zach, because they had just had a conversation like that same morning. And he didn't say any of that to her then. And so he just like kind of held it and waited until he had this moment in front of everyone. And it's just like, I don't know. It was really, really hard to watch three guys just kind of coming at Amaya and not giving her any sort of grace.
Yeah, it was definitely not fun. But then obviously the vote was that night, so then everyone was just voting for Amaya. So kind of it worked out in that way, I guess. Everyone just wanted to make sure she was going to be safe.
Well, and I mean that the or first vote, I mean we'll get to it, but like the polls that they
Oh yeah.
did were actually that day before that episode aired. And that's why people were kind of upset because they were like, I mean, yes, like Amaya still got number one and that wouldn't have changed, but the other factors, the other numbers probably would have shifted a bit if they had been polled right after the episode instead of before. Because I think with some of the girls in particular, I think people had a little bit more lower opinion of afterwards, and the guys too. But I think that was weird timing to do those polls, I
Yeah.
would say. But Pepe then received an anonymous letter saying, ever since Hannah left, have you been playing it safe until you leave the villa? We know you don't like Grayson as much as you liked Hannah. So Pepe admits that he still does think about Hannah. Grayson is upset about this because she says if he's not ready to move on from her, he needs to be honest with her and allow her to explore other connections. So do you agree with Grayson here? How do you think that Pepe has kind of handled this, considering that we now are aware that Hannah has really been on his mind this whole time?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that Pepe was trying. Like, it didn't seem like he was not putting in any effort at all, but it definitely didn't seem like he was putting in a ton because he definitely was still thinking of Hannah. So that's not totally fair to Grayson, but it also is a show where you have to continue on the show in a couple, and he was liking her enough to hang out with her, and that's not fair to Grayson though, just because like Grayson was liking him more and like was only wanting to be with him versus Pepe still thinking about wanting to be with Hannah as well, it seems like. So I think they just were not on the same pages in their relationship with each other. So it just kind of bound to end. But up until here, at least they got closure here and like in a little bit like after this happened, but I feel like it obviously is not a great place to be in.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Pepe could have done differently is I think from the very beginning, or at least like when he started to like think, okay, things are getting a little bit like serious with Grayson. I think he should have just been honest with her to be like, hey, I really do want to explore a connection with you, and I am going to try to be in the moment and really be there as much as possible. But I am still thinking about like I'm not fully over Hannah yet. Like I do think that he needed to just kind of tell her that so that then he could be like, look, if you are willing to be patient with me and give me some time to figure this out and how I'm feeling, then I really do I am seeing a potential here with you, but I need you to just like be patient with me and know that I am still kind of debating back and forth whether I still have feelings for Hannah or whether I am open to potentially developing a relationship with you. And I think that she would have maybe been a little bit different when he kind of in this moment says that, if he would have just kind of been a little bit more open with those feelings the entire time.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe he did say some things, but we didn't see it.
Yeah,
But
possible.
yeah,
Yeah, but it feels like if he did, it wasn't enough to, I guess, for
yeah.
her to understand that that is the situation.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, then Austin wrote Ace a letter saying, people have sucked up to what you say. The Ace posse doesn't go against you. When it comes to Jeremiah, he was damned if he did, damned if he didn't. So Ace says, offended by this, and says, well, actually, he has the balls to say what he feels, and Austin doesn't. And he brings up the fact that Austin would talk negatively about Amaya to the boys, but not to Amaya directly. So this point, I agree with Ace, actually. I mean, again, I think this is twice in this episode I have, which is concerning. But he says that, yeah, I mean, Austin, I think we never saw Austin say anything to Amaya negatively about Amaya. Whereas, yeah, I mean, he did kind of say more negative to the boys when he was with them. And I don't think that he was fully open with Amaya about those feelings because Amaya was blindsided by it in this episode and at this moment. So I do agree with Ace there, but I also agree with Austin that Ace absolutely has a posse that doesn't go against him and has just kind of stuck by his side the whole time. I mean, people have been comparing him to the Mean Girls from the yeah, like Regina George and her clique. So I mean, I think both have a point here, I guess, but I don't. I think at the end of the day, neither of them have a point. I guess is more
Yeah,
the direction that I would go in.
I know. It's just funny to see them fighting. I think it was the best part about
Yeah,
it. But yeah, I'm kind of on neither side here too.
yeah. We love to see two people who we hate fighting. I think that's the
Yeah,
most fun. Well, on any reality show, it's always fun when two people you don't like are fighting each other because you don't have a side. Like you're not emotionally invested in it. You're just like, let me get the popcorn because it's fun to watch when you don't really care for either of them.
yeah,
So then Huda wrote Shelley a letter saying, do you remember it saying it's just a challenge? You and Ace are still open. So she explains to Shelley that Shelley was always the one telling her to relax in challenges and when she was with Jeremiah, but now is upset for what happened in a challenge. Shelley says that she was really in saying that was referring to bombshells coming in who didn't know her connection with Jeremiah, but this is a different situation because she's been there the whole time and has been supportive of her and is now breaking girl code. So Huda apologizes, says it won't happen again, but Shelley doesn't want to hear it. She says she's done, doesn't want to, next, wants to move on. We get more later, but what did you think about this? Do you think that Huda is being genuine here in her apology, or is this damage control trying to, just get Shelley back on her good side?
yeah. I mean, the scenarios were very different, so I can see why Huda wouldn't wanted to write this to Shelley. But yeah, I feel like I mean Shelley obviously didn't want to take the apology here. And I mean I wish that like she would have. Like I felt like why are you still harping on this? Like it was a challenge, like you're really that upset, like Ace still wants to be with you. So, like, what's the issue here? Is more the issue
Yeah.
with Huda, and then she just can't get over that.
Yeah, I think that's my thing too, is that she knows that Huda and Ace aren't gonna start dating, and like what does she think is gonna happen? I think that it's very possible that Huda went too far. I think it's possible that more happened that we didn't see. They've been alluding to the fact that Ace was excited about this, and that maybe that's what kind of made Shelley upset. I don't know. We didn't see that. We didn't see if there were other stuff, but I think it's telling the fact that the whole villa thinks that Huda went too far, it feels like. Like, it seems like most people besides Huda don't disagree with that. So I think that is telling that maybe there was more we didn't see. But regardless, I do think that Huda did. I believe her when she says that she felt like it's just a challenge. And I think that she just kind of went into it thinking there's no boundaries, it's a challenge, whatever happens is going to be forgiven, all forgotten, it's going to be a fun, like, who cares? And then afterwards, after being told, like, hey, girl, I think you went too far, I think then she got in her head thinking, oh my God, I really messed up here. I went too far. Like, I fully believe that. I don't think that she went in with any malintent. I don't think she meant to hurt Shelley or to go after Ace, and this is going to be my opportunity to steal Ace from Shelley. Like, that didn't happen. And so I do think that I can see how Shelley would be upset. I understand it. I think that she should have had a conversation with Huda the next day after sleeping on it and just kind of, if you want to put Huda at a little bit of a distance after this, that's totally your prerogative. But I think for her to kind of hold it over her head for days and days, and I think is a little bit silly.
Agreed.
Well, then we don't end here with the two of them, because then Shelley wrote Huda a letter saying, if you're going to preach about being a girl's girl, you should practice what you preach. You want loyalty and respect from your friends, but to not give it is crazy. Shelley says Huda told Shelley that she brought Chris back for her, but really wanted him for herself. Huda says it was for both of them, that she told Chris that he should also continue pursuing things with Shelley, which Chris agrees with, to her credit. Alandria then spills that Huda and Chris kissed the night before. Huda and Chris are both upset about this, that she said this in front of everybody, since it's really nobody's business but theirs. Chris hadn't told his boys about this kiss. Huda had just told a couple of the girls, so I think this was really wrong of Alandria to do. I love Alandria. This is what I was talking about earlier about wanting to shake her for a second. This is when I wanted to, because, like, not only did she do that, she felt no sympathy for it. She was like, "Oh, I guess it's out there." It's
I
like,
know.
girl, you're
I
seeing, like, they're upset. What are you doing?
I was so shocked about that, and like it didn't even seem like a mistake. Like this time she like really meant what she said and wanted it to be out there, which was crazy. I mean, I guess cuz everyone was just given all the tea here that she felt like all right, like might as well share that too, but not the time and place for that to come out. And I felt for Shelly, or sorry, I felt for Huda and Chris in that situation. Obviously, then Shelly was also a little bit shocked to hear that, but like that's fine. Like you don't, they didn't shouldn't need to know that situation in that moment. But I think what like the whole situation with what happened here, it's just it's still just so great. Like they're just trying to figure out ways to really get Huda basically still hated on from everyone kind of thing. Like I just feel like they're reaching at things that like don't like here she's actually building a connection with Chris and then they're just trying to drag her down more because she's building a connection.
Yeah, yeah. This was really bad, I think, on Alandria's part. Like, I really don't like what she did here. It makes me kind of question. Remember back way at the beginning where she said in front of Sierra about how Nick and Beldasha kissed, and then she
Hmm.
turned to Sierra and she was like, "Oh, I didn't know that you were in the room." And at first, like, I thought, like, oh, either maybe she didn't know she was in the room or didn't realize that, thought she knew about it. But now I look back at that and think, like, maybe she knew she didn't, like, maybe that was her way of, like, getting it out there and, like, sharing the gossip and getting, starting a moment, and that she, like, very intentional about doing that. I don't know, but it does make me kind of look back at that and question it a bit, because now she just so willingly spilled the secret that she was confided in by Huda, and, like, I would be very upset if I was Huda as well at Alandria right now. So I never thought I'd say this and be on the side of Huda versus Elandria, but here we are.
Same.
Well, then Elandria is in the hot seat as well because she wrote Taylor a letter saying, stand on business and stop acting like a little bitch. Elandria says that Taylor never spared her feelings or reassured her. She always did that for him. So now she's not going to spare his feelings either. And as soon as things got hard, he moved on to Clark and left her in the dust. And Taylor responds saying that she wants him to do what's best for her, but not what's best for him. And he's gonna do what's best for him, and what's best for him is choosing Clark. So then he gets another anonymous letter saying, make up your damn mind. And he does. He picks Clark. So what did you think of this segment here? And were you on Team Taylor or Team Elandria?
Well, I was finally happy that Elandria did share like her built up anger towards Taylor finally. Like it always felt like she was just kind of being too nice and passive about everything that was going on. So at least here she finally could express herself and get that out. And then obviously then we see Taylor pick Clark, which I think was expected. Like at this point, they weren't really seeing eye to eye anymore. And we knew from when they were building their connection, like it looked like they didn't always have the most chemistry. Like there were parts of it that didn't seem totally like they were aligned when they were together as well before Casa more happened. So I think at this point, like he just had to choose, and it's good that this happened. I guess in this moment, I don't know if it's good it happened here, but it's good it happened, and that he could finally, both of them could move on from the situation that they were in, which wasn't really going anywhere, anyways. So at least now Taylor and Clark could finally focus on themselves and not have to worry about like what's going to happen with Elandria. And now it's just Taylor and Clark, and Elandria knows she can fully focus on other connections and moving on from that because she should have moved on from Taylor the second he brought Clark back and didn't really want to be with Elandria at that point either. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm really, really glad that she got some much needed clarity here and final, goodbye, see you later. I'm glad that she, like you said, was able to say everything she needed to say. I think, like you said, I think that she should have gotten the message loud and clear, right when he chose to couple up with Clark after Casa and not her. But it seemed like for whatever reason that didn't fully register. I think she still thought that there was a chance that he was wanting to still potentially explore a connection with her. And clearly he did not. And for whatever reason, she needed this moment to fully move on. So I'm glad that it finally happened. It almost makes me I almost wish she had just gone home though, like after Casa, because I think that this ever since then it's almost just been sad to watch. Like
Mhm.
it felt like the slow death almost. Whereas like I think that if she had just gone home and not been and I was really happy at the time that she got chosen to stay. But now looking back it's like I think just cutting it off there and having that be the end of her story I think may have been better for everyone involved. but here we are.
Yeah,
So, since she is still here, I am glad that at least this moment happened and she got to say everything she needed to say.
I agree.
Well, then the next day, Huda has conversations with both Landry and Shelley. She gets into a better place with both of them, and they all agree to move forward. So I'm glad that they're good, that they were, took the time they needed to process and, got out everything the night before. And then I'm glad that they're in a better place and they seem to, maybe they're not going to be as close as they once were, but I'm glad that they at least can have fun together and be cordial.
Yeah, I'm glad they can move on because it's like you never want them to hate each other. So it's good that they can make amends.
Yeah, for sure. Well, then Amaya confronts Zach about jumping in with the rest of the guys who were coming at her when he had multiple opportunities to tell her how he felt before, but didn't. He tells her that he shouldn't have kissed her before because he didn't really want to, but felt pressured into it. She takes offense to this and she walks away, telling him to F off. So, what did you think of this wild conversation?
Yeah, I was not expecting it to go where it did from the start of it. I thought it was more going to be like an apology, and then it was definitely not an apology. But this made me not like Zach from this conversation because I was like, well, that was rude. Why are you doubling down here and then making her feel worse?
Yeah.
Um, so I just felt bad for Amaya again here.
No, or Maya Papaya just cannot catch a break.
Hmm.
But yeah, I agree. I think Zach, from these last couple episodes, has not been coming across well. And I mean, we'll see, later on, but I think he's also. It seems like he's. Now that he knows what America thinks of Amaya, it seems like now he's all of a sudden wanting to at least be on friends with her and like that they're all good, but that's not, remember this moment, remember this conversation, because that's not the vibe that we were getting before he knew what America felt about Amaya. So
Yeah.
just saying, it's interesting. Then Pepe talks to Grayson and tells her that he's not feeling chemistry between them, that he just can't get there, and that he's still thinking about Hannah. Although he says that it's not about Hannah, that he's still just kind of, regardless of Hannah, doesn't necessarily feel romantic chemistry between them. But she gets upset about this, thinks that he's only thinking about his feelings and not considering her feelings. So seems like the two of them at this point are not are no longer together and open to exploring other options. So what did you think of the way that Pepe handled this?
I think it was good. I mean, they needed to move on. I think from that, it didn't seem like it was going anywhere. So I'm glad Pepe was finally honest with Grayson and telling her that he just didn't feel it.
Yeah, and I think that for Grayson, like, I think she's kind of feeling at this point, like, well, dang, I don't have any other options. So I think that she knew that it was Pepe or nothing at this point until, potentially there might be one or two other bombshells coming in, but otherwise, I don't think Grayson felt she had any other options. So that I think was really what she was most upset about. Those, like, I know that the next time there's a potential for me to go home, I'm probably going.
Yeah.
So then Ariana comes in and she is leading the Islanders in a game called Hate to Burst Your Bubble. So they have to predict how America ranked the Islanders in a series of questions. So they, both the boys and girls were ranked from most to least genuine. I'm not going to read the whole rankings out, but basically, Pepe was first for the guys, Taylor was last. For the girls, Amaya Papaya was first, and Clark was last. Any surprises for you with either of those?
I was just laughing at the fact that when they had to rank themselves, Ace was at the front for a lot of these, and then he kept being pushed and going down even further. And it just was great to see that because it's like, well, you're just not self aware of what America thinks of you.
Yeah,
And same with Shelly there too, because Shelly was also ranked towards the bottom here. And she was already like I think towards the top when they were ranking themselves, and then the guys kind of changed up too. But I think it makes sense for Amaya, of course, for the girls, and knew she was going to be number one. And for Pepe, I think like people just think he's great, nice guy. So I was happy for him for being number one for the boys too.
yeah, for sure. And basically, most of these rankings are the same no matter what the question is. For the boys, they were ranked best to worst boyfriend material. Again, Pepe was first, Taylor was last. Most to least trustworthy, the girls were ranked. And again, Amaya first, Clark last. Honestly, with all these, I felt bad for Clark mostly
Yeah.
because really she hasn't done anything wrong. It's just the fact that she's with Taylor, who America does not like right now, And, I think it's for good reason with Taylor, but I hate the fact that Clark has been drug into this and thinks that America hates her when it's nothing against her. It's fully just the fact that she's associated with Taylor right now. And, that's really it. And I even wonder if all these had been done after the Stand on Business challenge aired. I don't think Clark would have been last. I really
Yeah.
don't. I think that that's where things would have been a little bit different.
Yeah, I agree. I think she just got lumped into that, so I felt bad for
Yeah.
her. But she also knew that like after the next day, like they're talking about it, like she obviously knew it was because of being with Taylor.
Yeah, and I'm glad that she knows that. I'm excited for her to like get out of here and really realize that America does not dislike her at all. And I feel bad that like even she might be considering that because that must be hard when you're in there. Well, then Ariana reveals that America was also asked to vote for their favorite boy and girl. The three of each with the fewest votes will be vulnerable. So the bottom three girls here are Andrena, Jaden, and Grayson. Bottom three boys are Austin, Taylor, and TJ. Then everyone has to stand behind the vulnerable islander who they want to save. The one person who gets the most votes will be saved, and the other five will go home. So this was kind of surprising because I feel like usually they get to save one guy and one girl, but this time it's just one person and the other five are all going home. So Taylor gets the most votes. Clark, Nick, Sierra, as Ace, and Pepe all stand behind him, and he is saved. So then the others are sent home. Any surprises here in terms of who was vulnerable, who voted for who? Any surprises at all? What did you think?
Honestly, I wasn't surprised at all by these bottom six, the three girls and three guys. So I think it made sense. And then the fact that there was only one person there with like a real like good connection, it seemed like was saved. Like I thought, like before I even saw the vote, what was gonna happen, like who got everyone was standing behind. Like I knew it was gonna be Taylor who was gonna be saved, so I wasn't shocked.
Yeah, the only other one, I mean, we obviously like Iris and TJ have a good connection, so I could have also seen them potentially doing that for Iris, standing behind TJ and trying to, protect like the girls at least. Maybe some of them would have wanted to do that for her to allow TJ to stay. The only surprising thing to me, though, was Sierra standing behind Taylor.
Oh
That I think it seemed like Alandria was really hurt by that, and that surprised me. And I kind of figured it was just because Nick had done it, but
yeah.
and that's kind of what she says. But I still think that must have hurt for Alandria to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was also surprising, but it did just seem like it was because she wanted to support her guy there.
Yeah,
So that's why she did it.
yeah. Well, then, honestly, this last episode, there wasn't a ton to get into that happened, but Iris is upset about TJ leaving, of course, but she starts to consider the possibility of getting to know Pepe. So, what do you think of this potential coupling here? Do you think this is going to turn into anything?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like they both kind of like each other and they obviously kissed during the challenge and I don't know, it seems like they're kind of comforting each other in these moments. So, I don't think it's something that they're going to explore outside of the villa, but I think for right now it's helping them.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they both just kind of need someone to confide in, to comfort, and to be able to talk about their forgotten couplings that have since gone. But I don't. Yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily think that this is going to turn into anything serious between the two of them. But someone that might have found someone is our Maya Papaya. She and Brian have been getting close here, and once she officially ends things with Zach, she starts to explore that connection with Brian, and they end it with a kiss. They have a good conversation to get to know each other. So, do you see this turning into anything?
Yes, I am very much team Amaya and Brian. I think that they're a cute couple and it just makes sense. Like they just seem to me meshing really well together. So I'm hopeful that they can make it.
I am too. I'm excited to see this move forward here. So yeah, that's about it for this past week. We just had After Sun where Ariana is teasing that they are going to have the flying the families in of the Islanders in person. Usually they just show them on like a video call, but they are actually going to be there in person coming this coming week. So that'll be exciting to see. And it doesn't seem like we're getting a movie night this year, which is a little bit above a bummer. I don't think that we necessarily would have had as much to show as we did last season with, things that happened in Casa that they didn't already know about, but still always a fun night. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, I am excited for this finale week to come, and we will have our winner crowned before we talk next.
I know, crazy that it's already coming up on our last week of Love Island. This
I
really flew
know.
by.
It really did, and I am so sad to see it ending. But we have Beyond the Villa coming right up in its place, and of course Big Brother season. So we will have plenty to watch and talk about when Love Island is over.
Oh, for sure.
Well, then let's get into some Secret Lives of Mormon Wives reunion. What do you say?
Yes, let's do it. I was so excited because my favorite, Nick Viall, was the host. And if you didn't know this, I actually went on the Viall Files, not related to reality TV, but a dating question. That's a past story. But let's get into the current reunion, which aired on July 1st. So this is recent. If you haven't watched it, definitely recommend because I loved it. I thought that Nick did a great job as the host. I feel like we've seen obviously with Love is Blind reunion some controversies about the hosting gigs of those shows, and obviously here, like, I knew Nick would do a good job, but like seeing him actually do a good job like made me feel like a proud daughter almost. Like I'm like, yes, go Nick. But what are your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I thought he did a good job. I think that it's always nice when you know that a reunion host has actually like watched the show that they're hosting the reunion for, that they know what they're talking about. I think especially because Nick had had almost all of them on the Vial Files before this, he had really been able to hear each of their sides of the story, and so he kind of understood how everybody felt about everything, and I think could kind of bring that perspective to the questions that he was asking and, trying to get to the bottom of certain situations. I do think there was especially one moment where I think that he a little bit crossed the line in terms of giving his own opinion. Where he was talking to Whitney and he was like, well, I don't think that you've taken accountability for anything, or I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I thought, okay, like I prefer when, because I understand, like, you want your host to push back on things. You want them to, hold somebody accountable for things that they have said and done in the past. But I do think that I prefer that generally in the form of follow-up questions rather than
Mhm.
actually just saying, like, no, I don't agree with you as the host, or like, I think you're lying, or I think that you, like, because I think that you want them to feel safe. You want, with the host, like, you want them to
Yeah.
feel like you are talking to somebody who wants to hear your perspective and is open to that, and that even the host isn't like gonna come at you, and like, because then it kind of makes the person shut down a little bit. So that's the only thing that I think that I would have like preferred, that I think he'd be a little bit more objective. But overall, a small complaint, I think he did a really good job overall.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I noticed that they put underneath his name in that moment, totally unbiased host.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. And so I was laughing. I actually like replayed it and I was like, oh my God, like, because my closed captions were covering it. I was like, I need to read what that said. Because I saw like unbiased and I was like, wait, did they just like shade Nick here? Um, and they did. And
That's
I was like,
funny. I
that,
did not see that at
yeah.
all, and I watched this twice. Wow.
Yeah, so you need to take a look at what they wrote under his name. But so I thought that was funny. But yeah, I agree that I mean, but that's Nick. Like, so I like I understood that it's like his
Yeah.
opinion. Like he wanted to bring that out. Like, and I kind of liked it in a way too, because I was like, well, he is just being honest with how he feels about
Hmm.
her, like his questioning. So, but it did cross the line maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and I think like for a lot of people, it's like okay, it's Whitney, so like nobody cares. But like, I do think if like let's put it in place of Whitney, let's say he did that to Taylor Frankie Paul, then I think a lot more people would have probably had issues with it. So I think that's like it's a little bit of a slippery slope to allow the reunion or not allow, but like for a reunion host to do that. So I just think I hope that in future reunions, I hope that he takes a little bit of a more objective stance on certain issues.
Yeah, agreed. But it definitely shows that he knows the show and their
Yeah.
dynamics, especially because of having all them on his podcast and knowing them individually and like having kind of like some friendships with some of them too. So it allowed for more like easy conversations. It felt like throughout the reunion as well.
For sure. And I'm sure it's hard not to do that. Like,
Yeah.
Andy Cohen gets in trouble for some stuff like that too, where people say, like, I remember Kara Radziwill was like, "Oh, are you up Bethany's F's too?" Like, like I remember that moment, like clear as day. So I think that there's times where it's hard not to do that or to come across that way, even if that's not what you intend to do. In the pursuit of trying to hold people accountable and ask follow-up questions, I think it can come across to certain people depending on what side you're on of certain things, of like, are they being less objective than they should be or whatever. Like everybody's always going to feel that way to defend their favorites.
Yeah, for sure. So should we get into some more details of what we heard from this reunion?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Well, we start off with seeing that Jesse shares screenshots of Demi's text with Marciano. So Whitney tries to defend Demi, saying that she believes her to be an honest person, but that based on those texts, that she wouldn't trust her. So I was excited to see these receipts. I was like, wow, like we're already getting to it.
Heather Gay would be
And
proud.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like I don't know, like do you think seeing these texts change your opinion on anything or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, these texts, they were a little vulgar, so I'm not going to go into exactly what they said, but yeah, I mean, it certainly is hard to say for Demi to say, I think, that like she played no part in this and that Marciano was just, going after her and pursuing her and she never showed any interest because these were pretty flirty texts.
Hmm.
Now, I don't want to discredit anything of Demi saying that he put her in uncomfortable situations and that she, I hate to like just assume based on this that, anything Demi is saying where she felt violated or, that he went too far. I don't think that it calls into question that she's lying about that feeling that way. But I do think if you just look at these text messages, it's hard to say that it was completely one-sided.
Yeah, agreed. And it was funny because I mean they were really reading these texts out, which is good, totally unfiltered. But it
That's the
was
nice thing about Hulu versus Bravo.
exactly. We got everything. But yeah, I definitely feel as well that it's like you can't really defend me here. Like there's obvious evidence
Yeah.
and just showing that it was flirtatious on her side as well. But then also Jessie is asked about the rumors of her sleeping with Marciano. So then she says it was discussed in season 3. So she couldn't go into much about it. But it's not what you think, is what she says. And there are no secrets. So this was the most like what I was kind of annoyed about was like, why are you even still like talking about it now if you can't talk about it kind of thing. Like I was like, you're telling me you can't say anything, but like what's the point in keeping this in this reunion if you couldn't talk about it?
Yeah.
But
I think
yeah.
that's the hard part about filming a reunion in the middle of filming another season. We saw this way back when with the Jersey Housewives, where they filmed season 4 immediately after filming season 3, and so they filmed the season 3 reunion the day after the season 4 finale filmed. And literally, one of the housewives didn't even come to that reunion because so much had happened at that finale that we couldn't even talk about because it's a whole season later. And so it was like, it was just a wild thing of like, what happened the following season already because you're seeing those people fight at this reunion where they're fighting about issues they can't even talk about. So it was a horrible, weird thing that they never did again on Bravo. But in this situation, it's frustrating for a different reason because it's like they're refusing to answer questions because it's things that we know happened, but because they're talking about them next season and don't want to spoil it, they're purposely not saying anything. So it's just frustrating because it's like we need to just film a reunion before filming the next season so you can fully get out everything you need to say, put some of it to bed, allow some of it to move forward to the next season if it's not resolved yet. But that's the kind of the whole point of a reunion, and in this case, that can't be the point of the reunion because you're already either in the middle or completed filming a season that we haven't seen yet. So I don't like the scheduling of all this, but who knows? Maybe they weren't even planning to have a season 2 reunion at first, and this was kind of a last minute thing, and so it messed up the schedule. I don't know, but let's plan this better in the future.
I know, because I want to get to the bottom of it, but we're gonna have to wait until season 3 comes out. So there's really not much to talk about for that because we don't know yet.
We don't know.
Um, but we'll have to see. And then Taylor and Miranda open up more about the swinging scandal, and Taylor explains that she only made it public because there were already stories coming out online painting her as a husband stealer. So she fell back into a corner, and she wanted to tell her side of the story. And I also appreciated all the background that we got of the mom talk, which I feel like a lot of people didn't really always know that, like how it all started. And I didn't actually realize it until this reunion that it was Miranda and Taylor, the two who actually really started it and making content and then forming that kind of group of people. And the swinging scandal, obviously, that got out to the world from knowing these people who were TikTokers thinking, oh, they're Mormons, like they're not going to do anything like that. And then now, obviously, we hear all the stuff that went down, but which was interesting to hear about. I feel like overall, like there's obviously so many nuances here. We're never going to hear all the sides of the story. But I think that it's interesting to hear more about Taylor's side of it as well as Miranda's, and just overall like knowing that was not a great time in their lives, and especially for Taylor knowing that what happened with her situation and ruining her marriage and just like all the stuff, all the hate and everything, which she didn't really deserve all the hate, but I definitely like think she realizes now like she did make a mistake in what she did. So it's good for her to at least acknowledge that and like help her move on from it.
Yeah, I'm just glad to hear more about this because I think this is why a lot of people came to watch the show in the first place. It is
Yeah.
the swinging scandal. And in season 1, we barely heard anything about it because Taylor was the only one involved in it who was on the show. And so she's like, well, I'm not going to talk about all these other people who weren't aren't here. And I think now that Miranda is on the show, a lot of people say like, "Oh, she didn't do much," but I think that she does. It's really important for her to be there because she was such an integral part of the invention of Mom Talk, and none of this would be here if Miranda wasn't there. And so I think it's important for her to be on the show so that this swinging scandal can be discussed and can have both sides of it represented. And I'm glad that they brought this up at their reunion because I think they easily could have not talked about this at all because it's
Yeah.
old news at this point. But I'm glad that they did because I do think that there's still confusion around it, questions about it, and so I'm glad that they were both able to be there to talk about it, open up about it. And now I think we kind of have as much of the story as we're probably going to get. And so I think now we can kind of put this all to bed.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like everyone's still gonna think about it, but at least now, like, you can listen back to the reunion and hear what you want to hear from what happened in the
Exactly.
swinging
Yep.
scandal. But yeah, so then we see then Michaela is asked why she hates Whitney so much, which it was such a funny question, honestly. It's like, so why do you hate her? And she says she doesn't hate her, but gets annoyed because they agreed to try to move forward. And then 2 days later, Whitney unfollowed everyone. And then Whitney said that she didn't unfollow everyone out of nowhere. It was after the Jay-Z party where she felt attacked. And that Whitney felt that if she had owned up to everything, that she was done wrong, and wishes, or she feels that she's owned up to everything that she did do wrong, and that she wishes Michaela would also open up to having a conversation with her one on one. But it just felt like here they weren't really gonna move on from it, but maybe they will eventually. Like, just right now, it just seems they're still in that rocky place. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that these two will make up. I don't think that they will hate each other forever. I think that this is a very easy, petty fight that I think that they can easily move on from. And based on TikToks that, they've been posting, it's possible they already have. And I mean, they hugged it out later in the reunion. I think that just kind of hearing both of them talk about their struggles and other factors that maybe they've, been dealing with and they can kind of support each other on. Like I think it puts into perspective these petty things of unfollowings and all of that. I think that nothing so deep or dark has happened. I think that Whitney is just upset that Macy keeps making posts about her. I'm sorry, not Macy. That Michaela is, posting all these TikToks. Michaela's annoyed that Whitney is, unfollowing and getting out of group chats and not attending things. This can all be resolved.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll have to see what happens in season three. But then we have Dakota come out on stage, and he and Taylor sit next to each other, and Taylor says that they're not together currently, but they're still sleeping together, and they're both working on themselves to be the best parents that they can be. And Dakota explains why he didn't come clean to Taylor about the Jenna stuff initially, and he didn't want to hurt her more at the time, but Taylor is most upset that he didn't say anything until he was cornered. So it was just a lot, I feel like, going on with them. And they're always going to have, I feel like, some sort of drama or like something that's going on. I don't know if they're ever going to get to like a really healthy place in their relationship, but I hope that they can be good co-parents just for the sake of their son, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that they absolutely should not be together. Right now, at least. Like, I think that like they said, they both need to work on themselves and get to a better place where they can either decide to, fully commit to one another and they will be fully exclusive and try to make this work, or they are both going to move forward and not be upset when the other one, sees other people. And, they just need to make it very clear one way or the other. Like, I feel like I'm talking about a Love Island couple. Like,
It
either
really
be
is though.
exclusive and have that conversation or go explore other islanders.
Yeah.
I think that they are right now just kind of in this weird middle place where they're sleeping together but not together, and this isn't sustainable.
No, definitely not. So hopefully they move on from that, but we'll have to see what happens. And then we did not have Demi at the reunion, but she did go on Nick's podcast or go film with Nick a separate interview so that we could have some clips of her because she had planned a Disneyland trip with her family that she couldn't miss, which is why she wasn't at the reunion. Which also it's like it's Disneyland. Like, did you have to be there the whole time? But it's fine. Um, so she says that she thinks that everyone is scared of Taylor and that Taylor doesn't value any of them as Mom Talk members. and she calls Taylor's following a cult, which is interesting. But I feel like in general also it was interesting just how Demead wasn't at the at the reunion, and just had a separate interview, which I guess they brought it in pretty well. I think like how they had it in the conversations, like she couldn't obviously back herself up, but everyone else could talk about what she was saying, which I guess made sense for this setting. But I don't think it makes sense for her to call Taylor's following a cult. And I think, I mean, yes, she has a lot of followers and a lot of people support her, but it's not like they're not crazy, hopefully. But maybe
Oh
they
no,
are.
that's not guaranteed.
That's not guaranteed. But I feel like just because of what Demi was doing or saying, that maybe like that was maybe like why they were
Yeah,
getting that reaction from Taylor's following. Um,
sure.
but I also don't know why like people are scared of Taylor. Like I don't think that call out made sense. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so in terms of Demi not being at the reunion, I go back and forth of whether they should have filmed this interview at all with her. Because I think on one hand, you choose not to go to the reunion, you don't get your side of the story told. Like everybody at that point, you are allowing everybody to tell their side of the story and you don't get to respond. You don't get the opportunity to have your side of the story told. And I think that's your punishment for not attending the reunion. On the other hand, I think that this reunion certainly would have lacked, hearing Demi's side of the story. I think that it would have felt like a huge piece of the puzzle was missing by her not being there for sure. And I mean, it still did because we didn't get to have her have two-way conversations with anyone.
Hmm.
But I guess her punishment for not being there is that she gets to tell her side, but then they get the last word.
Yeah.
So, they hear what she has to say and then they get to respond and she doesn't get to respond back. So, in a way, I guess she's still kind of that's a little bit of a punishment, that she gets for not being there in person, but I do think in a way it was a little bit of a cop out that she still got to have her interview shown when she decided not to be there for seemingly no good reason. I don't know.
Yeah, that's understandable. I feel like because of that, like it didn't really give conversations there, but we could still talk about her.
Yeah, and I think like we saw this on the Selling Sunset for this first reunion the Selling Sunset had, which I think was after season 5, that Christine Quinn just didn't show up. And that reunion was really, really boring because she was the only source of drama, and then all the other girls were really getting along for the most part. And so Christine, they didn't do anything with Christine. They didn't film anything with her. She allegedly had COVID, but then the next day was seen doing a photo shoot or something. Uh, so I think that this reunion certainly was more exciting because at least they did do as much as they could without Demi physically being present there to include her. But also I think with this group there was enough drama without Demi that it still would have been a decently good reunion. But I don't know. I see why they did it, but I question whether it was the right move.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe they wouldn't do that again, but they wanted to try it out for this
Yeah.
one. So it made sense. But then Taylor is asked about CMA Gate, and she admits that she was petty, but she that thought that it was a plan that the rest of the girls had coordinated, which is what upset her. And at least here we kind of just get to the bottom of it and just can move on that it wasn't a plan, that it was just a coincidence, and they've obviously moved on, but it's just funny to still think about CMA Gate and what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked this to death. Yeah, I think the conclusion is that it was bad that they did not comment, but I do think that it was just a weird coincidence that none of them did. Maybe some of them like looked at it and saw it and said like, oh, well, nobody else has commented, so maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It was kind of a weird thing, but yeah, I don't think it was a coordinated effort or anything. Taylor went too far in her response, probably, and got, all of her fans who really, really love her to probably say some not very nice things to the rest of the girls that was not necessarily warranted. But, can understand her being upset about it.
Yeah, definitely. And seems like the rest of the girls like kind of felt bad for it too in some ways. They're like, well, like we just didn't see this or like
Yeah,
no to respond in that way that just didn't it just made it so it escalated the situation. But
yeah,
yeah. But then we had Zach and Jen join the group because they were separate from the beginning part of this reunion. Then they come out, and Zach reveals that they've been doing 9 hours of therapy per week, and Jen discusses her prenatal depression. Then they show a clip of Demi saying that she doesn't regret the way that she treated Jen. But then Jen pulls out a secret recording of a phone call that she had with Demi and Brett, where they were trying to plan out what to say on camera about Vanderpump Villa. So that felt very scripted, or not like not, that they were scripted, like not Jen and Zach, but
yeah.
that
Scripting
Demi and
themselves,
Brett,
self-producing.
yeah, they're self-producing themselves, and trying to get them to not talk about them in any bad ways, which was interesting to see this part of it. I was like, wow, like we're really breaking the fourth wall on this, and sharing that whole recording also. But I feel like it was just like I don't think Demi obviously should have done that, and I'm glad we got to see it though or hear it of what was going on. But I mean, they are on a TV show, and like I guess that has to happen in some ways of like trying to protect their image and other things like that. But what did you think on hearing the secret recording, and do you think that Zach really has changed, or do you think it's really an act to just turn the public perception around for him from season one?
Yeah, I think I loved hearing this recording because clearly Demi and Brad had no idea that they were being recorded here, or they would not have said any of that. So I love that because, that is a look into how they really are. They're trying to really control the narrative of what the rest of the cast says about them and about the situation. And the fact that she said what did or did not happen, at Vanderpump Villa is very clearly not denying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's interesting, and I wonder if how at all this will be addressed in season three, assuming that they were still filming at the time of filming this reunion. I'm sure that they've already been known to break the fourth wall on this show. I could absolutely see them in the middle of the season, that this comes up as an issue between Jen and Demi, that they'll say, well, at the reunion, you dropped this audio, blah, blah, blah. So I think that will be very, very interesting. And in terms of Zach, I think it's kind of, I would say it's about half and half. I think that they're very aware of, he is very aware of, wanting to come across differently and change his perception. But I also do believe if they're doing 9 hours of therapy a week, like, I believe that that will change a person and help him to, fix some of the issues in their relationship. So I would say that it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, and I think they've obviously grown a lot together as well, which is good to see how Zach and Jen are being able to support each other now, and just in general, like in their relationship, it seems like they're in a much healthier place, which is good. And they just welcomed another child to the earth, so they're also very in that new now that we haven't seen. At this point, they hadn't had the baby yet, but now we know that they have a baby, and it's just like they can move on from some of that stuff from season one and realize like that was then, like focus on what's happening now and moving forward.
Yeah,
So we'll have to see what happens with the Demi conversation though, because that was interesting.
very.
And then Demi is shown discussing the allegation that she spoke poorly about Jay-Z Styles. And she claims that it was actually Layla and Whitney who said that they weren't happy with the color that they got done. And then she was just relaying that information to another friend. And Layla says that this was twisted and that she only said that she didn't like blonde on her. So here we see more Jay Z Styles drama, and it feels like this is never going to get put to rest at this point. But do you think that Demi is telling the truth here, or like what do you think overall of her situation with and Jay Z Styles? What's going on?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there's probably truth on both sides. I don't know. Probably the truth is somewhere in the middle here, but I don't know. I could see absolutely that Demi would kind of twist what Layla said or what whoever else said, and make it seem like they were trying to, to put the spotlight off of her and say, oh no, it was really their fault. And it seems like Demi is certainly the type of person that would do that before taking accountability. But who knows? It's hard to say. We'll never know probably what the full truth is there. But based on the phone call, the texts, all the proof that we're seeing that Demi has not really been super open and honest with a lot of these issues, I'm not going to believe her without really probably seeing proof that says otherwise. So I don't know. It's when you act that way and have all this come against you, then it's hard to then just take your word for a different situation.
Exactly. That's how I feel too. It's just like, well, what can we believe from Demi at this point?
Yeah.
But we'll have to see what happens. And then finally, in this reunion, we also have Nick reveal that Whitney and Jen will both be joining the upcoming season of Dancing with the Stars. So I'm excited to see them. I think they'll do a great job in this coming season. There's so many Utah people on Dancing with the Stars now. It's like all Utah essentially.
I
Um,
know.
but I'm excited. Obviously, Jen and Whitney both have been wanting this, and they're also, I think, good dancers. Like, I actually think that they're gonna do really well. So I'm excited for that. The only thing is that because they have similar fan bases, like, are their fans gonna split? And like, who's gonna get more of that, or like, whoever leaves then is gonna get a bunch more of that, like whoever was voting for one or the other
Yeah.
kind of deal here, but I'm excited to see them both.
I am too. I think this will be really fun. Yeah. I think weirdly I mean, I'm sure they have similar fan bases and just people that watch Mormon Wives, but they also could have very different fan bases in the fact that they're not on the same side of any arguments, so
That's
they might have their own individual fan bases. But no, I'm really excited to see them. Curious to see who they'll be paired with, and yeah, I anytime we get our little people from shows that we watch here, whether it's like the Bravo people like Ariana or Whitney and Jen here, or Chriselle from Selling Sunset was on a few years ago. I'm always excited to see people from these shows and get to root for them.
yes, agreed. Well, do you have any other closing thoughts on the reunion?
No, I thought it was good. I thought it was a really good reunion, and it had the little trailer for season three we got at the end was exciting. It looks really good, so seems like we're gonna get that probably, I would assume. I don't know, probably around October, November, I would think, towards the end of the year. Definitely before the end of the year, they've said. So should be not too much longer we have to wait. So very excited for that.
Yes, I'm very excited to see season three. That's going to be great when that comes out. So we'll have to wait till then. But until then, we've got lots of reality TV still to cover. So make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. Follow us on social media and wherever you get your podcast, you can like us, review. That helps as well. And we'll also be back next week just to cover more of Love Island. Of course, it's ending, so the finale as well as the premiere of Big Brother. So that's going to be exciting as well this coming week.
Yes, I cannot wait for that. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will be back next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.